You are listening to the Critical Mass Radio Show, Orange County's business talk show, focused on exploring topics of interest to CEOs who are leading middle market companies. With your host, Richard Franzi.
And welcome to Orange County's longest running business talk show and podcast. And yes, I am your host, Rick Franzi. And do we have a good show planned for you today? Why do you ask? Because our guest, Dennis Harris, is the founder and the executive director of Inflow Interventions. Dennis, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
I'm excited to have you on the show. So I always love it when I get a founder on the show because I have to start by asking you the original motivation, inspiration that you had to launch Inflow Interventions. Can you take us back in time and talk to us about that?
Yes, I can. Thank you. It started with the question that was asked to me, which is what is my passion? And it didn't take me long before I answered people. People are my passion. And from there, what I began to realize is that I was already doing the work without realizing I was doing the work. So once I had that revelation, I became intentional with the work. So I decided, okay, how can I make it intentional depending on my audience? And then from there, how can I scale it so that it becomes something I can measure and guide? So that's how we got started.
All right. And that was a handful of years ago. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit, about longevity in business. But over the years, have you had to retool the business, pivot, make any changes to the assumptions of the business model? And if you did, could you share those with us then?
Yeah, I would say the reason I have to pivot is because I'm recognizing, or over the years, I should say, the need for support services, whether it be through counseling, mental health care providers, or life coaches, has increased as demands on individual lives, family lives have gotten bigger through many mediums. The need for support has grown. And with that, I've had to increase my education to offer more services. So that was a major pivot for me because I was, I get used to operating within whatever is going on in the world at that moment. So every time there's a shift in the world or a shift in a community, et cetera, I have to shift with it. So yeah, major shifts require major pivots.
So let's get into the details of the present day version of Inflow Intervention. So help us to understand, who do you help? Kind of what's the niche that you focus on, Dennis? And then what problems are you helping them to solve? And if you could talk about the persona, maybe of the ideal type of client that really knows how to engage you and your firm for maximum ROI. So can you kind of give us the sense on those three elements?
Yeah. I would say the clients that I'm typically used to dealing with are people who have become aware that they are in process of breakdown, meaning that whatever they've designed for themselves or for their family, for their community, for their group, et cetera, is not working or not living up to the expectations they had set. And that's where the conversation starts for me. So for the most part, the ideal client is going to want to change. That's essential. And then from there, they have to commit to doing the hard work. So wanting to change to needing to change to the extent that you're willing to do the hard work. That's the ideal client. So you take, for instance, a individual who cannot find the right career path for themselves. So they've gotten themselves into this falling in and out of career or jobs, not quite realizing why they cannot realize what it is they want to do. And the conversation arrives at my table, as I previously stated, by realizing something's not working. So helping somebody identify what works for them, what doesn't work for them, requires a lot more work than one would assume. It's not simply just what are you passionate about. because what you may be passionate about may not necessarily turn into a real commitment or something you may end up being committed to, because passions come and go for a lot of people. And that's, I guess you could say that's the kind of client that I am typically working with.
So I see we have a comment from one of our listeners at the Speech Path, and it says, "We are the story we tell ourselves," and she loves that thought.
Yes. Yeah, that's something. Yeah, I actually it's something I've been leaning into lately. So I would call that very on time, because how you speak to yourself really can determine your reality and how you engage it.
Yeah, that is I work with entrepreneurs and business owners, and the space between their two ears is some of the most valuable real estate they have in their firm. And that self-talk can be very empowering or disempowering, has been my experience. How about yours?
I would say it's extremely empowering. It's life-changing. We talk a lot about emotional intelligence. I think emotional intelligence is a human superpower, and being able to connect with it and realize that it is something not to just have, but something to manage responsibly, can be life-changing for a lot of people. So that's part of the work that people have to do with themselves, is become aware of not just what's going on in their environment, but what's going on with inside themselves. Because a lot of people don't realize the reason why a lot of things is not working is because not so much the people around you are not working, but something in you may not be working to see what you need to see in order to make significant or sustainable change.
So is most of your work done one-on-one?
Most of my work is done one-on-one. I sometimes there are some small groups. Sometimes there's one or two people. Sometimes there's three or more people. It really depends.
Are you working in a business setting, a personal setting, both? Kind of talk to me about where people find you.
So both. So a lot of times people are finding me via their own network. You have a friend who says, "Hey, I'm having trouble at work. I can't quite figure out what's going wrong." And that friend may know me, and they may say, "I think I know somebody you should talk to. They might be able to help you find out what's not working." And that works for businesses as well as individuals. Now, the other thing is I did just relaunch the website and my LinkedIn page, so they could find me there as well, www.in-flowinterventions.com.
Interesting. So I love the name. I wanted to ask you about the inspiration for the name as well. So maybe you could, as an entrepreneur, you have to make a lot of decisions. One of them is what you're going to call your company. How did you come up with the name In-Flow Interventions?
Well, I will say that one of the things, I didn't realize it at the time, but as the name came up, as the name was revealed to me through my own meditation and prayer, I didn't realize that this was a well-known way to describe a psychological practice for mental health care providers. But that's not what was going through my mind, even though the work, when you put it on the board, looks very similar. In-Flow for me was being intentional in my conversation, in that people first must understand, in order for change to happen, it comes from within. So In-Flow is not so much you managing this person, this thing, that thing. It really is you managing yourself. And then from there, the flow is working with what you have in front of you. And I also, there's a phrase I've used where it's basically going with the current, so to speak, because a lot of people are fighting the current and they're not in flow. And I'll put a period there because I can keep going on from there.
So tell me about a typical engagement with your client. How long does it last? I mean, is there a typical engagement that you have with your clients? And if so, can you kind of diagnose that for us?
Yeah, a typical engagement, there's two scenarios I'll paint the picture. The first engagement is with the individual, someone who's saying, I need to work, realizing I'm in breakdown. I need to find out what can I change within to change what's going on around me. That can take, I limit those sessions to 1 hour. because I do tend to belabor points and overly pontificate. So that's how I keep myself on time. And then if there is a bigger problem, say, for instance, there is an organization where there is breakdown in professional relationships, that requires a little bit more conversation. So that session or sessions can go 90 minutes.
All right. So let's turn our attention a little bit because, being an entrepreneur, you kind of carry the weight of the organization. And I'm wondering, in your arc of your career, have you ever had that feeling of the weight of the organization? And if so, can you share that with us?
Well, the way I see it, it's not really the weight of the organization more than it is my responsibility to people. Of course, within reason. You don't want to step outside your purpose by design. But what you do want to do is realize that it is about people and the fact that they need help. And when you're working with people from different walks of life with different backgrounds, the giving yourself the grace to allow people their own process, and at the same time realizing your responsibility to support, not necessarily guide, but support, because everybody's their own independent contractor. That is what becomes more and more, I become more and more aware of, I should say, is the level of support that most people need. And because it's my passion, I love it. I absolutely love it. You will never find me happier more than when I am finding myself in service to someone and them, as I'll coin a phrase that's become very popular, which is help them be the best version of themselves.
Yes. You're like a personal Sherpa for these people.
Yeah.
I like it.
I could be super tired, but the moment somebody says, I have a question for you, can you help me? All of a sudden, I'm not tired anymore. Let's go. What you need?
The energy. All right. So I wonder if in your career you've picked up a piece of meaningful advice from someone that you could now pay forward, Dennis, to my audience.
Yeah, there's a couple of pieces of advice I've received over the years. First and foremost, keep it simple. And to expand on that thought, keeping it simple really is taking the conversation inside, and don't have a conversation for everyone else. Typically, when people are experiencing breakdown in their life, society, etc., the conversation is concentrated on everything going on around them as opposed to themselves. So keep it simple, keep it focused on you. And then the second thing is something my mother told me a long time ago. And she said, do you know why the hamster or mouse dies in the cage as they're running around? And I says, no, why? She says, because they never look up to realize there's no roof on that cage. It's all a choice. So they're busy spinning, but they need to look up and realize they actually have choices.
Right.
That was brilliant to me. And I actually have integrated that into some of the coursework.
Well, there's a shout out to your mother.
Yes.
You never know what there's going to go on this show here, Critical Mass Business Talk Show. Let's keep it moving. I'd like to ask my guests about their view on artificial intelligence, kind of on 3 levels, if we can do that, Dennis. The first one is your general sense of AI as technology and impacting society, how you see it impacting the industry that you're in, and finally, what is your plan or current usage of AI inside of your practice?
Okay. Well, in society, it's kind of it's a double-edged sword, or a catch-22, if you will. It has positives, it has negatives. And from that, what I'm experiencing is there's become a reliance on AI. I actually want to call it an over-reliance on AI. People are not self-actualizing as much as they used to. And I talked to people who said, I asked ChatGPT, what should I do? And that always gathers my interest, because what it does is it actually creates a greater need for services like inflow interventions, because people are once again going outside instead of inside to get answers to I guess you say answers to questions they really have the answers to if they were to just sit with whatever it is they're trying to figure out in that moment. Now, again, some of it needs support, which is where I go on the third component. How I am seeing the work as far as inflow interventions is concerned in AI. What I love about it is, I can type out a course for someone because I have constantly changing courses depending on the individual or the circumstances. I can go, okay, I like this, but something feels not quite right. Something's not quite buttoned up. I have no problem feeding that into ChatGPT saying, what am I missing here? And ChatGPT, well, you could consider this and you could consider that. And I said, oh, this is great. This is like one big old brainstorm boardroom, because you can direct ChatGPT to say, I need you to get me sources for what you're telling me, so I can actually go read it for myself.
Interesting. Yeah. I love people's perspective on artificial intelligence and the impact on humanity. And you kind of touched on that a little bit. And I want to circle back tie it to something else that you said earlier, which is that the name for your company revealed itself to you through mindfulness and meditation. And I'm wondering, I guess that means you practice that. And I'm wondering, does that come into your consulting work at Inflow with your clients? Are you recommending or suggesting that people use techniques like that to kind of go inside themselves a little deeper?
Yeah, I would say that's a big question, in that depending on the person and the situation, they may need assistance doing so. Some people's brains are not very safe. They're not safe with themselves. So the moment someone comes to me and says, I'm going through XYZ, I need help with this, I need help with that, I am assessing what their capacity is in that moment. Because as first and foremost, as I said earlier, you have to be a willing participant. And a lot of times I start touching on things and people feel like I'm some type of psychic. And I go, no, I'm not a psychic. I recognize that we all have different symptoms, but the same problems. So most of the mental paths that we walk result in different behaviors or circumstances, but they're the same mental paths. So I follow the pathology. So that's where we talk about the inner work, because it really isn't somebody else's pathology more than it is your own. And again, as I said before, that's a big conversation, because now when we get into the pathology of things, now we have to stretch out to understand where we come from, to understand who we are, and to make an informed decision from that space.
Is there any age demographic? I mean,
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So I will say my primary client is above the age of 40, but does not exceed the age of 62. It's rare that I'm talking to someone over the age of 62. It's so funny because, when I talk to people in that age group, they will say to me, where were you when in my 20s?
Right.
Well, we don't know what we don't know. Right. And in our 20s, we don't know a lot, but we think we know everything. You can't tell us anything. Excuse me, I'm talking like I'm 20 something. I'm not 20 something anymore. I wish I was, I wish somebody had spoke to me back then, but the process is the process.
Right. So let's talk about the process of the future, and what is your vision for the future of inflow interventions?
Yeah. So my vision is expansion outside of the community in close proximity to me. So recently I discovered, or I should say I tapped into the need for mental health care services, given what's going on in our world environments. And so I started a charitable arm for Inflow, which I'm calling Overflow, so that people in need of mental health care services can receive it on a pro bono basis. In addition to that, I'm also recognizing that there is a need for people who were once incarcerated or being transitioned back into society to receive support services that includes mental health services. And we are also connecting them with free mental health care as well. So using the charitable arm to expand inflow is where I see myself going, because I am not limited because of what I do to the state of California. I can go other spaces. But my intention is to use the charitable arm as a launching pad for that.
Interesting. Yeah. And this is a recent
revelation. I would say as of April of this year is when I realized, real. And I would say this much: when I realize I have something to do, it starts getting done real quick. Okay. So as of April this year, I realized I need to give back to people who cannot afford mental health services, because a lot of people who come to me, they can afford my services, but I'm always looking for certain patterns or pathologies that say to me, you actually need professional mental health care services, because your work requires a much deeper reach than what I am capable to provide.
Interesting. I love that. Thank you for focusing on those two areas of need. It's, probably underserved, frankly.
Yes.
In the area of mental health. Okay, Dennis, let's say someone would like to reach out to you, maybe connect with you on LinkedIn, maybe check out your website. I know you had said that earlier in the show, but could you kind of revisit your LinkedIn profile and your website?
Yeah. So my website is www.nin-flowinterventions.com, and I can be contacted through there. You can also find me on LinkedIn under Dennis Harris. Inflow has its own LinkedIn page, so you can find Inflow Interventions through LinkedIn as well. And then my email address is Dennis Harris at inflowinterventions.com. I apologize. I have another Gmail account with my full name.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they'll get that straight. And I appreciate you sharing a bit of your story, your journey, your vision for your company here today on our program. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me.
And thank you to the audience for being a part of Orange County's longest running business talk show and podcast. Dennis's show will immediately join our archives of over 1,600 shows that we've done over the years. If you happen to be an Orange County entrepreneur or nonprofit leader, and you'd like to share your story on our program with our audience, then connect with me. I'm Rick, R-I-C, Franzi, F-R-A-N-Z-I on LinkedIn. And between Haley, our producer, and myself, we can get you ready for a future episode. Until the next time we all have a chance to be together, I hope all of your business decisions will move your company in a positive direction.